zero. I'd like to remind everyone that once you're sitting down, you can wear your mask if you like, it's up to you, and that we will try to keep the doors sort of closed, but feel free to come in and out. I just wanted to welcome everyone here. We have a great panel here today, and I would just like to hand over to our moderator, Agnes da Costa, who is the advisor to Minister Bento Albuquerque of Brazil. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Emerson. So it's a pleasure to be here. Wind power in Brazil and Latin America has played a key role in energy transitioning. So I think it's a very good idea to build up this panel with specialists from the region to discuss this. As we have foreseen at the beginning, we will ask Ramon Fiestas from Alfonso Blanco from Oladen to come with some thoughts about this. Is Ramon? Oh, sorry, Ramon Fiestas from JUEC to come up with some thoughts and highlights about this discussion of wind power in Brazil. So, Ramon, would you join us with your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning to everyone joining us here at COP26 in our panel, Latin America, wind power as a key driver of net zero. So, but first of all, I would like to extend a special welcome to our guest, Elvia Aganum, Executive President, CEO of the Brazilian Wind Power Association and Vice Chair of GWEC, John Lezamis Gortázar, Global Head of Public Affairs at Siemens Gamesa, and especially Alfonso Blanco Bonilla, Secretary General of the Latin America Energy Organization, OLADE. Thank you very much for your efforts in joining us this morning to discuss the role of wind power in the path to net zero in Latin America. And special thanks to Alfonso, as it is already 6 o'clock in the morning in Ecuador. And I know he has done a very big effort to match in his agenda the meeting today. According to findings of the study on renewable energy tendering in Latin America carried out in 2020 by OLADE and GWEC, close to 24% of the total installed capacity of electricity generation in the region was wind power, which represented over 80% of the investments in the so-called non-conventional renewable energies in the region, reaching at that stage close to 30 gigawatts. So this was, without no doubt, an astonishing step compared to the decade behind, which ended with not more than 2 gigawatts of total installed capacity of wind power. Along this period, the industry, the financing institution, and the public sector faced enormous challenges to insert renewable energies in the heart of the energy policies along the region, and to overcome the typical technical and regulatory obstacles laying in the energy markets and the electricity systems to embrace variable energy sources of generation. But nevertheless, if this was a difficult journey, it is nothing compared with the effort to be done in the current decade to achieve the climate goals. The International Energy Agencies, IRENA, and the IEA predict the necessity of quadrupling the wind power installed capacity in 2030 if the world wants to reach net zero commitments according to Paris Agreement. So this implies a colossal effort, which in Latin America cannot be done without new policies to integrate climate commitments into energy frameworks and to start stepping this ladder. Some ongoing initiatives are yet starting to become face and eyes through the efforts of the public sector, in which our industry must play a unique role. I wish you will enjoy this panel and discussions today that are probably going to focus much on the RELAC project. And we expect the best outcomes to drive together the journey to net zero in Latin America. So please, let's go ahead.
Ramon. So besides Ramon, who is the president of Latin America GWEC, we have also here Alfonso Blanco, executive secretary of OLADE, Elber Ganon, the CEO of the Brazilian Wind Association, Averólica, and John Lezamis, Global Head of Public Affairs, Siemens Gamesa. So welcome, everybody. I love your comments, Ramon, because in fact, we have several energy policies in the region, and we have now to look where is the decarbonization target or goal inside these policies and try to get synergies among them so that we build a more sustainable and clean future for the region. So my first questions for everybody. First, if you would like to make some introduction about yourselves and what you're doing, but when we think about energy transitioning in the region, what do you think is pushing or holding back this movement in the countries you are working with? When we look into a higher stake of renewables, but a lot of fossil fuels still in some countries. So I will start with John.
Thank you very much, Agnes, and thank you very much also to GWEC for inviting as proud member, Siemens Gamesa of GWEC in taking part of the panel. With this panel, just to introduce a bit myself, I am heading the public affairs function at Siemens Gamesa. We have been in Latin American countries expanding and unlocking the full potential of wind since late 1990s. Currently, we are more than 1,000 employees in 9 countries. For example, having an LBN here, we have manufacturing facilities also in Cavazari, in Bahia, and with very strong presence in the Latin American region with more or less 10 gigas of wind power installed. If I may answer to your question, I think that there was in the 1990s, there was the wind resource of Latin America is great, not only wind, but also solar. The renewable sources are great. We also consider that economic growth has been steady with all the volatility that all other regions around the world we have suffered also, including the pandemic. But for example, looking into 2020, 33% of the foreign direct investments in Latin America was renewables. So that fosters the idea of how resilient we are and the appetite that there is for the region. So there is economic growth, there is renewable sources, wind sources. What I think we are lacking is while new champions are appearing in the scene, like we can see Peru, Colombia, there are already, let's say, the very mature markets, Brazil, Chile, Uruguay, but we consider some other countries are lagging behind the initial developments that they launched and the investment that they attracted since the very beginning. The reason being that we consider they are not looking into the long-term investments rather than into the short-term, let's say into the short-term recovery, and also considering that they may have other energy sources, that there are some fiscal revenues coming from those other energy sources. So we consider that there is investment appetite, there are bulk amounts of money ready to invest, as we have proven that they have been invested already in the region, but we consider that there should be a stronger political commitment and more stability in the frameworks to try to keep the steady investment into the region.
Thank you, John. So, Elvia, what are your thoughts about what is pushing or holding back energy transition in Brazil?
Thank you, Agnes. Good morning, everyone. I am Elvia Ganon, CEO of the Brazilian Association and Vice Chair of the GWEC. And I'm going to talk about Latin America. It's very important to understand the level. Or I need to repeat. No. Thank you, Anderson. We need to think about maybe in the last 5 years, we had a lot of policy changes made in Argentina and in Mexico, because the investments in renewable, the model for energy sector was going in very good shape for renewable, but this country, some political decisions changes this. Sometimes the way, in other times it's reduced only the speed that the way they are going. When you talk about Brazil, that you talked that I know very well, the situation is different. We are not discussing exactly about the politics, but about the economic situation, actually macroeconomic situations, because we believe that the Quantities Association GDP in the last 7 years, GDP has not bring enough, and we don't have demand to receive the investments that you have. Then in Brazil specific is important it's very important to understand that is it matter ground economy. It's not about politics. Of course, nowadays we have a very, very specific situation because we have a problem with supply. We have a metrics that is 60% dependent from hydro plants. We are suffer effects with the climate change, and we don't have enough water in reservoir. It's a very specific situation. But when you look for medium and long term, we can see that we'll have investments or a way for investment for renewables. We will maintain, and we need to take a little bit more speed, and this speed depends from macroeconomic situation. It's not about the political situation.
Thank you, Eva. You have a very good point. When we think about Brazil and these countries in the region, the developing countries, we know that there is a lot of energy infusion to take place, that people will demand more energy. And then we look into fostering renewables, of course, but you have a good point that it's very important for the region that we have this macroeconomic stability, and so that also this energy does not cost a lot for consumers at the end. So, but I think when we think in the long run, medium and long run, we know that there will be a lot of need for new investments in the region. So, I think it's a really like the minister says, a paradise for green energy sources. So then my question goes to Alfonso Blanco from Moladre. Hi, Alfonso.
Hello, Agnes. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to GWEC for the kind invitation. I'm from here, Ecuador. It's 6:55 a.m. in Ecuador. Well, what is the situation in the Latin American region regarding renewables and the energy transitions in the region? Latin America and the Caribbean is the region in the world with the higher penetration of renewables in the primary energy matrix. We have in the region around 29% of the primary energy from renewables, in comparison with the rest of the world around 13%. And that is a very, very, very important issue to highlight regarding our region. If we consider the energy transitions and the incorporation of new renewable energy sources in the region is incorporating non-conventional renewable energies at a very high rate. And if we consider the 2020, because we are closing the energy balances of 2020, And in consideration with the pandemic situation, the region didn't stop the incorporation of renewables. We had during that year, in the middle of the pandemic, around 5 gigawatts installed of non-conventional renewable energies in the region. The percentage of renewable energies capacity installed in the electricity generation rise up to 61% of the installed capacity in all the Latin American region. And part of this installed capacity is and in this increase of the installed capacity is based in the high incorporation of wind energy in the region. During the 2020 year, we had more than 3 gigawatts installed in wind energy in the middle of the pandemic. In addition, we have 31 gigawatts installed of wind energy in total in the Latin American and the Caribbean. We have a very important target under the RELAC initiative to increase the participation of renewables in the installed capacity for electricity generation up to 70% in 2030. And that will involve the incorporation of more of 2,063 gigawatts of renewables in less than 10 years. And that is an important goal for our region. Our region is the greener region in the world, but we have very important targets in accordance with the energy transition for more incorporation of renewables. And I have to highlight a very important issue. The renewables in our region has been incorporated under market conditions. That is a very important result for in the report that we prepared with CIWEC last year. The wind energy is the cheaper source in most of the Latin American countries, and we have to move forward in the renewables incorporation in the region.
So I will pass a question then to Ramon. So we are beginning to see all these net zero announcements and wondering how Glasgow will push people forward in their obligations and commitments. But so could you explain a bit about the RELAC initiative from Latin America that you announced at last COP25? And my question would be, how do you think that we can work better together in aligning economic, environmental, and energy policies in the region?
So this is really a difficult one. Thank you for the question. No, I would say the RELAC initiative is something we've heard from the energy organization, the Ministries of Energy Organization in Latin America. I think it was last year when it was launched in COP25. And for us, it was a very exciting announcement because it means that a huge opportunity is in front of us in order to achieve the coal phase out target that we are looking for in terms of reducing carbon emissions in Latin America. It is true, Latin America is the greenest region in terms of electricity generation, but it is necessary to say that we need to focus and in certain countries in the region, that are much more coal-based in their generation matrix. And this is the countries in we would like to focus more, because this is really not the case of Brazil, in which Brazil you can see that more than 50% of the wind power installed capacity in the region is belonging to Brazil. So and Brazil is, if I'm not wrong, has an electricity matrix with over 50% of hydropower. So this means that probably this is the most greenest electricity system that we can find in the region, as well Costa Rica, as well Uruguay, in which the penetration of renewable energies is really astonishing. But you can see, and you can look into other countries, and this is the case of Chile, the case of Mexico, the case in Central America, a number of countries that are very heavily supported by coal and fossil fuel generation, in which the effort is absolutely necessary, as well as in the Caribbean. And to these countries, I would like to see this effort of RELAC in terms of achieving the 70% renewable energy target that has been announced last year in the framework of the RELAC program. How do we see this program? We see that this is a perfect tool to enhance stakeholders and push for this ambitious target in terms of strengthening relationships, creating partnerships in order to build up a proper framework for achieving this 70% target, specifically in those countries that are mostly necessary in that sense. Renewable energy, non-conventional renewable energies implies really a strong change of practices at the market, at the electricity markets, and in the electricity systems of these countries that are relying on fossil fuel capacity, that are not used to manage variable energy sources. This means that a number of issues that has been arised in countries in former periods in which the penetration of renewable energies has been stronger, these countries are going to face exactly the same issues in regard the necessity of refurbishing their electricity markets as well as their electricity system. Build up a framework, a proper framework to achieve the net zero targets needs necessary with the participation, with a strong implication of the industry, because from the side of the industry is the technological knowledge and is as well a very sound regulatory knowledge in how to do this, how to build up these frameworks in a proper way. For example, it is not possible to see a 70% renewable energy target in Latin America without offshore wind power. Offshore wind power is a technology that is being developed in a number of countries that are already developed, and the experience of the offshore wind power is at the side of the industry at that stage. And to enhance countries to embrace this technology passes through the strong engagement between industry and policymakers and regulatory designers. And this is something that needs to be somehow organized and pushed from the government side. I will like to call that for that issue the Marrakesh Agreement. That is exactly that what I am saying. Closing partnerships between public sector and private sector. And I would like to see this for the next decade in Latin America. Alfonso, the floor is yours now.
So talking about the private sector, I think Ramon will have a good point. So asking to John and Elvia. So when you look into the future, new perspectives, how do you see the development of offshore wind, but also of hydrogen and of hybrid projects? What do you see coming in the next years in the region?
Yes, it's very interesting to look forward, exactly because I believe that in the medium term and long term, we have a very good perspectives to increase renewable in general. It's not only for wind. Brazil has other sources like solar. And recently we worked for prepare a regulatory framework for hybrid projects. That this regulatory framework will be ready in the next year. We have projects that portfolio, some projects that we are ready to start construction. And hybrid projects will have the next 2 or 3 years, exactly because we are ready for this. We expected to increase storage batteries in the next 3 years because we had made a study the last year, and we stood a point that the batteries will be competitive in 2025 in Brazil. Then you can have hybrid projects with batteries too. It's very important because it is increase the generation, and it's good because in Brazil nowadays we have a price here. Pricing is our prices, and it's important. In medium long term, you can see offshore projects. We can see hydrogen. Ashley Iserben said that you have a regulatory framework in December for offshore, and we expect that we have hydrogen in 2030. There are two challenges about the hydrogen and about the offshore. Hydrogen, you wait for technology to develop and to reduce costs and to be competitive. And the offshore has been reduced costs very fast in the last years. And we believe that for the next 2 or 3 years will be faster than because the main point in Brazil about renewable is that renewable needs to be competitive because we have other alternatives. If you don't have, you cannot see competitiveness for offshore in the next 2 or 3 years. It's difficult to think that this project will start so fast. It's very important, is that I was talking, Ramon was talking. It's very important to understand that in Latin America in general, there are a lot of sources, and in general, we don't have subsidies for this. Brazil has no subsidies. The unique subsidies that you have, the government stopped it, and I fully agree with government. It's not necessary, because Brazil is able to produce the cheapest wind onshore in the world, and they need to attract investments in renewable sources since this is competitiveness.
Thank you, Albert. I think what people don't know in Brazil is that subsidies in the energy sector are paid by consumers, not by taxpayers. So this makes the bill gets very expensive. So this is really important that we enable the development of new renewables without subsidies in the country. So John, what are your thoughts about new technologies?
Well, first of all, Agnes, thank you very much for the question. I think that Ramon was clearly stating that we from the private sector, we have been able to deliver. Even Alfonso was saying that we are the most competitive energy source. We don't need any more subsidies. We can compete on our own. So I think we have already reached competitiveness, the floor, let's say. So Of course, we will be continuously improving with better logistics, better materials, more capacities, but I think we are already competitive. That is a clear message. Second, we really applaud the RELAC alliance, because we consider that one of the main challenges, not only in Latin American markets, but around the world, it is the lack of a holistic approach, a global view. So there are, as said, there are vast renewable resources in Latin America, but the more all the countries collaborate, the more chances to gain from the competitiveness of renewable sources. It doesn't make any sense to build capacities where there is no enough capacity, so we can unlock the full potential of Brazil for wind power, of hydro, together with Colombia, with Peru, with Chile, with Argentina. That would be fantastic. So I think that the role to be played by COP26, for example, and Olade, in getting insights, RELAC, that would be fantastic. And as regards to green hydrogen and offshore wind, they are the newcomers. We must think that, as Evia was saying, we have to, of course, we have to confirm competitiveness of green hydrogen. We at Siemens Gamesa, we consider that grid parity will be reached onshore as regards to green hydrogen in 2030 and offshore in 2035, not in Latin America, but anywhere, somewhere in other regions. But competitiveness of green hydrogen depends directly on the amount of renewables. The more renewables and the more wind specifically, because of the capacity factor you bring in, the cheap green hydrogen will be. So, for example, we are already working on a project in Chile, bringing green hydrogen from wind. Colombia has recently set up the roadmap for 2030. Argentina has announced some investment in green hydrogen. We consider green hydrogen. Chile has announced, for example, I think it was yesterday, an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with the port of Ambert in Belgium to try to Ambert become the port where green hydrogen produced in Chile may be imported. So the market is moving. But as said, if we want Latin American region to become competitive in green hydrogen, more wind is needed. And as regards to offshore wind, I would say that having you both, Agnes and Ellie here present, I think that Brazil is a front runner in offshore wind in Latin American region. I think currently there are 22 projects, around 40 gigas being analyzed. So that is very good news. But as said, we consider that it is going to be taking time to get maturity, because there is investment for ports, for infrastructures. The components are bigger. It is let's say it is a more complex market, and there is still so much to unlock for onshore wind. And this is the reason why we consider RELAC so good, because if we try to meet the needs from the public with the capabilities of the private and enable an agile discussion between both of them, I am sure, and we are sure, that we will encompass the growth of wind, onshore wind, with the entrance of offshore wind power, and develop the new capabilities, jobs, local value chains, and so on and so forth.
Thank you, John. No, I think you are right. And from the government side, what we do is the homework and setting the framework and looking, because when we talk about offshore wind, we have had a discussion last week. So how to do the licensing and the bids for the concession area. So these are the frameworks that we are discussing now in Brazil. So when the private sector is ready, things will be ready there as well. So talking about the region, Alfonso, I would like to know, how do you see integration in Latin America for renewables, also for infrastructure in terms of transmission grids, also gas pipes when we think about hydrogen? And so how do we make the region more accessible and enable these interconnections?
Yeah, that is a very important point to discuss the integration and what is the role of the energy integration in the near future. We are facing energy transitions with a high penetration of renewables in the near future, with systems in the region that has a very high complementarity, and the integration will play a crucial role in the efficiency of the energy systems in the region. But we have homeworks to do regarding integration, because we don't have dynamic integrated systems in the region. We have a very good integration system in the Central America region. There are people that can say, well, could be better. That is true, but it's working in the Central American region. But in the rest of the region, all of the integration is based in bilateral exchanges of electricity between countries. We need in the region more integrated energy markets with better conditions to have integration between energy transactions between countries that doesn't have a border, and that is the challenge for the near future. We are working in a very ambitious initiative with the IDB regarding the energy integration in the Southern Cone, with the CIESUR initiative to create an integrated electricity market between Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Chile, and Uruguay, and the idea is to have dynamic and better integrated systems in the sub-region. We are working in the Andean region with the CISNEA integration process, and there are other initiatives in the Arco Norte integrating the north of Brazil and the Guyanas, but we need to move forward in the integration process. And if we are thinking in energy carriers like the hydrogen and the development of the hydrogen, the integration will be a necessity in order to develop a regional hydrogen market with the idea of exports to the rest of the world. And that is a very important issue to highlight. We need in the region more integration, and we need to move from bilateral, very good bilateral exchanges of energy, because Paraguay is exporting the energy to Brazil. Uruguay now is exporting energy to Brazil too. The different bilateral hydropower generation. But if we are including a higher penetration of renewables, the role of integration in the efficiency of the energy systems will be crucial. And I want to add an additional point. In most of our countries, if we are thinking in the incorporation of 70% of renewables in the energy systems, we have an important issues to discuss, because we obtain very good complementarity between wind power and hydro, and that was demonstrated in a lot of countries in the region. But there are countries that has a very high, as Ramon said, a very high incorporation of fossil fuels generation, and the role of integration in order to give the backup to the systems with the installed hydro in the region to provide the necessary efficiency of the electricity systems will be crucial. But the gaps between countries and how to move forward in more integration is not an easy job to do.
Guys, I don't know if we have any question.
We have questions from the audience. They're in the document. From the virtual audience. Should I read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The question is, don't you think a cross-border energy market is key to facilitate the energy transition in LATAM? Is there an agenda to move this implementation forward? So I think this was what Alfonso was addressing here. And when you were speaking, Alfonso, it made me think of Europe, the great interconnection that we have here. You are right, we are discussing a lot of bilateral integration, imports and exports, but once you have an interconnected grid, it makes these transactions more easier and also makes it easier for each country to balance their markets also easier. So I think, yeah, we have to move forward. The region is much bigger. The challenges are, we have all the Amazon forest in the middle, but we have to think about how to build these grids. So I think it's time to wrap up. I will pass then the words so that you can come with your final conclusion. So Ramon, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would say, yes, the goal of achieving net zero in 2030 or 70% of renewable energy penetration for Latin America necessarily needs or is calling for new policies and for a new framework. So we could come to this point revising policies that was already enacted and was enacted on firm capacity thoughts or basis. Now we are shifting the electricity matrix of Latin America into variable energy sources. This is calling for a very ambitious new policy in which we need to work everybody together in order to put our efforts and our intelligences together to achieve that. This is my message.
Ramón, yo te veo y te escucho, pero no escucho el panel.
Alfonso, a mí me pasó igual. Ahora te veo, te escucho, pero no escucho el panel. Sorry.
Está bien. So, I need to speak English now. I was talking about integration because I believe that is very ambitious project. We discussed integration. I have been in energy, electricity sector for 20 years, and we discussed integration in Latin America since this. And I believe that there are some learning that we can change. It's very important. For example, Brazil started with model to contract renewable by offshore. And it was a very good process that we started in 2004. we had this experience in 2009 for renewables, and it made renewable to be so competitive because this is an auction process. After this, Uruguay started to do the same, Argentina, Chile, and the rest of the world. It's a kind of learning that we can change. And in despite of integrations, physical integration to be so difficult, but I believe that we have other things that we can change. And we try to do this, and I believe that Ramon make a very good job when he discusses. And there are other institutions in Latin America that we work together and we change a lot of experience.
Thank you, Elder. John, your final consideration.
Thank you, Agnes. I think that final consideration from our side would be that we have already developed the technologies. When we are speaking about energy transition, we are ready to deliver. As said before, LATAM has a huge potential for wind power. When we were referring to the newcomers, green hydrogen, offshore wind, they will come. But when talking about hybrids, we are already delivering. So our final message could be, we have to stop investing in fossil fuels because investment is jeopardizing unlocking the full potential of wind power in the region. We applaud RELAC Alliance, and I think that is a great step for a holistic and regional integration. And we can deliver. What we would ask is follow the renewable champion countries and let them drive the energy transition in Latin America, because we, the private sector, from an investment point of view and from a technological point of view, we are not only ready to deliver, but we have already delivered.
Thank you, John. So, Alfonso, let's on this.
Yeah, thank you. Final message. A very good message from our energy balance 2020. During 2020, we had more than 10 gigawatts less in installed capacity from fossil fuels. We increased 5 gigawatts in renewables, and we decreased in 10 gigawatts in fossil fuels power capacity. That is a very good result during 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. But if we want to incorporate more than 2060 gigawatts in less than 10 years, more than 120 gigawatts if we consider the business as usual scenario, to have 70% of renewables in the installed electricity capacity in the region. We have to work a lot in leverage the existing barriers and to for the renewables, and to create the ecosystems for the renewables in countries that doesn't have that kind of situation. We have to consider that the incorporation of renewables has a lot of issues regarding long-term energy policies, regarding financial situation for renewables energy projects, the different fiscal positions of the countries that are very important for the development of renewables in some countries, and regulatory frameworks. And we have to work a lot in countries that doesn't have this situation, and to reduce the gaps between countries in the region. There are countries that has that kind of ecosystems, that has that kind of long-term energy policies, and the roadmap to incorporate the necessity of renewables in the energy matrix. But we need to give the support of the rest of the countries in the region that have to work a lot in the energy transitions and to create that kind of environment for the incorporation of renewables. That is a very important effort and a very important challenge for our region, and that will be the role of organizations, international organizations, and the private sector too, and governments, of course.
Okay, thank you, Alfonso. So I thank everybody that is watching us here and here who is participating, the panelists and Joe for organizing this panel. It was really a pleasure, so thank